Lubel.
Oh, we're on. Oh, my God.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it is an absolute pleasure. Mm-hmm. So for everyone out there, I met Al last week at a comedy show. We were performing at Broadway. He was on before me. He impressed the hell out of me. I was like, who the hell is this guy? And then I didn't see you again because I think you took off straight after your set. And then I saw him again like a few nights later at the comic strip, and you just absolutely murdered to a point where I've never seen anyone murder that hard.
Wow.
I've never seen anyone get that many laughs consistently, like bang, 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 the whole way through.
Wow.
And your jokes, your sense of humor, the way that you write, the way that you perform is completely original. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
So you completely blew me away. So I'm really a little bit starstruck just to have you here right now, to be honest. It was... So thank you very much.
I feel pressure to be a good guest now.
No pressure. No pressure.
Unbelievable as a comedian. As a guest, I think maybe the worst I've seen.
He was awful. I'm never getting it back again. So Al, tell me, like, I want to get into a little bit of your life and comedy, but first things first, like, how did you develop an act like that? I said to a friend, I don't know if you're going to like this comparison. I said, you're like the Anthony Bourdain of the comedic world. Right. I know, because like Anthony Bourdain is so beloved, but he's also like so unique and so different and almost just, he's in his own lane. And when I saw you, I was like, this guy is just exactly like that. And so where did you?
That's funny because I've been told sometimes I look like him a little.
I think you do too.
Really? That's
yeah.
Funny. But I never watch. I'm not into like cooking and stuff. So,
yeah.
Or like delicacy food or whatever. So I didn't watch much of it. But now I'll watch it just to see like similarities in personality.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I hope I don't have the suicide part.
Well, you still got some years left out.
That's true. That's true. I shouldn't put pressure on myself. Yeah. If it's organic, I'll do it. If it comes organically. Just stay a little while longer, Al. I only just got to New York, right? I plan to make it through the podcast.
Okay.
That would be a great podcast for you, and if I commit suicide.
The ratings would be pretty nuts.
Right.
I don't think I'd get another guest though.
Right.
Like, there's something wrong with this guy.
Right.
So yeah, how did you develop your unique style? Actually, before I'm going to just do a few things. Like, sure. So everyone out there, Al has a documentary on YouTube. It's called Mentally Al. It's awesome. Completely amazing documentary. Go watch it. This guy's super interesting, super funny. Watch that. You've been on the late shows multiple times, like Johnny Carson, Jay Leno. You've been on David Letterman a number of times. Mm-hmm. You've had comics like Sarah Silverman say, the first alternative comedian, the very first alternative comedian. I mean, what a compliment.
Made me feel old.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, that was very nice of her to say that. She always liked my act. And I never really thought of it myself that way. But then the alternative movement started, and she noticed that because I always was weird and offbeat, and it would cost me some spots because I didn't know I was alternative, being the first alternative comedian. I didn't realize it. But I would be bitter a lot of times because I wouldn't get spots other people would get because I challenged the audience to follow me with a weird train of thought. And I guess you'd have to say the other comedians don't challenge so much. They're just saying, you ever notice your wife does this and your girl, this happens, that, and things that people can immediately relate to. The stuff I was talking about, it was in their subconscious they could relate to it. So the audiences would fight it a lot because they didn't want to hear that. But that's the only stuff I like talking about. It took me a long time to get there. I talked more about being a lawyer in the beginning. I used to be a lawyer for a couple of years, and that was more accessible to people. They could relate to that. But then I started talking about just me personally and my own mind and my thoughts of fears of death and issues with my mother and all these things that would trigger a lot of people in the audience. So I lost a lot of spots that way, but I couldn't change. I just felt too phony to go back to the safer stuff I started out with, when I didn't really know who I was yet. I just couldn't be that way. It just felt horrific on stage. So, I struggled that way, but that was quite a compliment from her because she's like amazing comic.
Yeah. I mean, but it's a compliment well deserved. You really are. You've paved a way for comics.
Really?
What I took from watching you in the last few times and seeing your documentary, I started thinking to myself, even this morning, I was like, there is so much more depth inside of myself that I can reach.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things that I want to say that I'm afraid to say because I'm worried about the judgment of people and worried what people will think, what people will say. But watching you, I've realized, like, just say it. Like, don't worry. Like, be yourself. Like, be your authentic, true self. And watching you has really awoken something inside of me.
That's great.
So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's a great thing to hear. And I'll say that it wasn't easy for me to do it either. It's practice. The more you do that kind of thing, it hurts at first. It's scary, but then the more you do it, you develop a muscle for it. It's like working out in the gym. You develop a muscle, to take these kind of chances and push yourself. And I still feel fear when I go into areas I haven't been in before that I'm playing around with. But I think it's important to press against the fear. That's a shrink. I've seen a multitude of shrinks over the years. And one of them I'll never forget, when it was the end of our sessions, I decided to quit. I think I was running out of money. He was expensive. And he walked me downstairs and he said his final words were, press against your fear. Fears, because that was my huge issue for everything. Fear. What should I do? Do you think I should do that? I don't know. I'm scared to do that. Everything with anxiety. And I learned, so I was paralyzed a lot by the anxiety. So I wouldn't take action a lot in life. And that's when I got depression. So the depression came from the anxiety, because when I didn't take action and I saw life moving on without me, other people doing things, not me, I got depressed. So, but fear, if I had to choose between fear and anxiety and depression, anxiety is my bigger problem.
And I can kind of relate to the fear in just my short time doing comedy. I think there's been moments where I've had to go, all right, do I do this like the easy day, or do I do the hard day? Do I say the joke that I've been working on that feel really uncomfortable about, or do I do the joke that I'm comfortable with? And I've started to realize if I'm scared of doing something, then that's probably the thing that I should be doing. Right.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that on, I watch a lot of these guru kind of people, spiritual people on YouTube.
Okay.
And they say that. That's one of the things I've heard. If you're afraid of it, it's probably a good sign you should be doing it.
Yeah.
But I remember I was playing this popular club in New York City years ago, and I was kind of playing it safe there because I was getting a lot of spots and I didn't want to lose my spots, so I was playing it safe. And my friend came to see me a lot, and he said to me, Al, you got to take chances a little. You're just playing it safe. So I took chances, lost all my spots. So my point is, it's a balance, isn't it? You gotta, because I remember, George Carlin. It's funny, in England, a lot of people don't even know Carlin, but I remember I was doing a gig late 90s in Atlantic City, and I heard that George Carlin, I knew George Carlin was in town. He was at the hotel next to us. And I heard he'll take your phone call if you call him. He'll talk to comedians. Anyway, I was struggling because I was opening up for a country singer. And the audience there, it was only a 2-night gig. That first night, the audience was a country and Western crowd. I've never done good, like in the South in the U.S. I've had sometimes done well. But I mean, like in general, they don't relate at all. They're more a Christian kind of crowd. They're more like, not that Christians don't laugh. I've played Christian comedy churches. Sometimes they're great. But it was a tough crowd, and I was playing it safe with them. I was doing things that were a little easier for me. So I got through the set, and I felt bad about myself because I did some of my easier jokes that I wasn't purely me. So I called up George Carlin, and I said, and he answered the phone, unbelievably, staying at this hotel. I go, can I speak to George Carlin at the switch? Hold on. And fucking George Carlin answers. Unbelievable. Yeah.
Wow.
And I go, hi, George, I just want to say I'm playing this club next door. I heard you talk. I just want your advice because I've been playing it safe. I played it safe last night to get through the set because I didn't feel it was my kind of crowd. And I feel horrible about it, especially knowing you. You're the guy that says whatever you want. You're totally free. And he goes, Al, You're at the you've chosen. He used the phrase "chosen to stand up," which he meant to me a stand-up comedian. You've chosen to stand up. It's your job to survive as a comedian. If you have to compromise at this level, do it so you could keep doing it, and then find your moment when you really feel comfortable and established enough where you can start being more yourself. And I was so relieved to hear George Carlin say it's okay to compromise, because naively I thought, look at this guy. He doesn't compromise at all. But actually, he was, because if you know, I watched video. I read his biography and stuff, autobiography, and he talked about he had the great routine called the Hippy Dippy Weatherman back in the '60s, and it was great. But he was playing Vegas, but he would be compromising in Vegas because the gamblers just have a low attention span, and he would do his simpler stuff there. Mm-hmm. And one day he said, "This is it. I'm quitting." So he quit Vegas. He was making tons of money, like 20 grand a week or whatever. He quit, went back to New York City, rented a little like room, a showroom, and just said what he felt was on his mind.
Wow.
And that's how he became George Carlin.
Wow. Yeah, so it's a balance, isn't it? I mean, you do have to pick your moment, but you also have to put food on the table, don't you?
Right.
So,
yeah. So luckily I wasn't, that dependent for the food from those spots. I forgot I was doing other things to make a little money, but I used to be a lawyer, so I wasn't being a lawyer at that moment. But anyway, yeah, it wasn't, I don't know if it was so much food on the table from that, but it was being a comedian, getting spots. Yeah. I would lose my spots if I was totally myself. And I did when my friend said, "What are you doing? You're playing it safe. You're killing, but what about all these other ideas you took?" So when I did it, I lost all my spots. And so I was really depressed for like 5 weeks. I was getting like no spots in the city. And then, so I gradually came back and I compromised. Like I would look for little moments in this show where I could sneak myself in. And then gradually I kept sneaking myself in to the point where, and thank you, that's a very nice compliment of you. I'm really more myself now. And, so it took a lot of work to get there.
Do you think now with the sets that you put together, you are 100% you, or do you think there's still compromise in your sets?
Yeah, there is still compromise because I've done Edinburgh. You ever hear of the Edinburgh Festival? I've pretty much been 100% me there because you get your own hour, okay? There's no comedy club owner looking at you, booker standing in the back of the room. You get an hour instead of 15-minute spot like here in the city. So I had my complete freedom to just completely be myself. And it's a funny story. I remember before I did Edinburgh, like the first time I did Edinburgh was like 10 years ago. And my friend was helping me. Rob Chaffee is his name. Sadly, he passed away a year ago. But he came to see the first show I put on in that little theater above Stand Up New York. And I managed to get for that show, at least I had like 15 people or something in the crowd. It's a small theater. But he saw it and he goes, "My God, Al, you should really, you should be doing this every week. What you have is incredible material. Like, you got to keep doing this." So he agreed to help me produce it, like help me get a crowd. So he helped me get a small crowd each week. I did it for like a whole year, every week, once a week for a whole year. But a very funny story, he once said to me, "Al," because I still had it was a theater, but I still had the instinct to try to get laughs all the time because I'm a comedian. Mm-hmm. He said, "Don't worry about getting laughs all the time. This is your show. It's a theater. It's not a comedy club. Take your time, but you don't have to get laughs all the time." So I did that. And when the show was over, he was furious at me. He comes up to me, he goes, "Al, you weren't getting laughs a lot." I go, "Yeah, you told me." He goes, "You went 7 minutes without one single laugh." I'm the kind of person, I take advice and then I go too far with it all the time. But it didn't bother me, those 7 minutes without a laugh, because it didn't feel like it wasn't a comedy club, it was theater. So I thought it was okay because it's true. In a theater, they're okay with not laughing a lot. Because it is a theater, so it's not just comedy.
They're still entertained, like
right.
They may not be laughing, but they're still enjoying. It's like comedy. The moments in between the laughs when you can notice people just smiling at you.
Right, true. It's important to look. Sometimes I never usually look at faces because I find it distracts me.
Okay,
but I got to do that more. You're right, because people could be smiling, or just people really even not smiling, but they look like they're really listening.
You can tell you got their full attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Another funny story about that run I had with Rob Chaffee was this time it was only 7 people in the crowd. It was a really tough crowd, and they weren't laughing at all. And so I was still doing the act, and then suddenly 5 out of the 7 walked out, like about halfway through. So there's only 2 people left. And I do like 10 more minutes with him, the crowd, and then those final 2 people walked out on me, right? And what Rob said was so funny to me. He goes, those final people, 2 people who walked out, they were thinking, I didn't know we could do that. Because they were watching the 5 that walked out. But the thing with me also, I have to say, there's a big part of me that's also attracted to failure. I like bombing a little. There's a part of me that almost I like to cause a reaction. And if I can't cause laughter, causing pain's not that bad either.
Really?
As long as I'm not going to lose, work.
Yeah.
If I'm at a comedy club and they're not, I don't want to do that. But if I'm at my own show and you came to my own show at a theater and you just, in my opinion, should be laughing and you're not, then causing you some pain is not that painful to me.
Wow. You're a total pro.
Is that a pro thought, or is that a sadomasochist?
No, I don't. I think it's a total pro thought.
Yeah, because you know why? Because I had and also I had my confidence at that point. Yeah. I know it's not for everybody, granted, and maybe those 7 people were that group. I have a joke on that, so I can't remember the wording, but the 7 people in the world that would hate me more than anyone else in the world, they all came tonight. Yeah. Right. That's it. Right. But it's only from years of stand-up that I got that confidence, knowing that I know this is funny. It may not be for you, but this is what I do, and this is funny. But it took years to get that kind of confidence.
Mm. Well, let's take it back for a second. So, how you were a lawyer. At what point did you decide to go, all right, I'm going to try stand-up? And what were your first few times like?
Yeah, well, I got the idea while I was in college. I went to the University of Miami in Florida. And the first time I got the idea, Lenny Bruce? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a great comic. He was like a trailblazer. He's like the first comic other than Mort Saul. I don't know if you ever Mort Saul. They're both credited with starting this wave of stand-up.
Okay.
Mort started talking politics. That was his interest. He'd come on stage every day with a newspaper, and he'd look at articles, and he'd just riff off of it. He's a great improviser.
Wow.
And
those guys are impressive.
Amazing.
The guys that can just think on their spot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Of course, we don't know if he read the paper before the show.
Most likely.
Right. I don't know. He was also a genius. Like I've read, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did riff off of it, but I don't know. But Lenny Bruce, I saw a movie called Lenny starring Dustin Hoffman, came out in 1975. And I remember watching that thinking that was the first time I wanted to be a comedian or really thought about it. Like I used to love watching, I never heard of Don Rickles. He was a great comedian here. I'd love to see him on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Rickles was a frequent guest. But I never thought I would be a stand-up. Or for some reason, I don't know, the movie Lenny made me think I should be a stand-up. So then I bought Lenny Bruce albums. I listened to the albums. In acting, I took an acting class in college. For my scene, I would do a monologue of Lenny Bruce, and I was getting laughs. Actually, better laughs than he got with his own stuff. No, I don't know. But
that's when the spark got ignited, right?
Right.
When you're getting the laughs on.
Right. Yeah. And then so I thought in college I wanted to do stand-up, but I was already, I didn't have the confidence just to quit college. I was already headed to law school. I was going to go to law school. Didn't have the confidence to not go to law school. I had no idea if I could make a living at stand-up or anything. So I did go to law school. And I did pass the bar in Florida and California too. And I moved. I figured if I want to do stand-up, I should move to California. So I moved there. I passed the bar in California. And I started doing these little, new material nights, little bar gigs, for no money. And just, but I was, and I started being a lawyer for a couple of years for the small town lawyer that, initially, he decided to, what did he do again? He was paying me, weekly, a small, decent amount to live on. But then he said, I'm going to put you on a per job basis because I'm losing money on you, is what he said. So per job, you'll get paid. Because I was writing my jokes all day long. I wasn't focusing a lot on the stuff. But also, I have like OCD, obsessive compulsive. I'm obsessive. So I remember I spent forever on this appellate brief. An appellate brief is like when after in a trial, sometimes people appeal the case, gotcha. Right? So it goes to an appellate court. And our client needed an appellate brief where I would argue why, I forgot whether we won or lost the case, but I had to argue to the court. No, we were making the appeal. So I had to argue to the court why we shouldn't have lost at trial. We should win now on appeal. I'm appealing the case. So I created the appellate brief, but being OCD, I kept working on it and working on it and working. And he said, when are you going to finish this? This is a business. We need to move on to something else. You got to do something else.
Line in the sand.
But I kept working on it and working on it. And they submitted the brief. And the judge said, this is the best brief he's ever seen because I spent so much time on it. But the boss didn't care. He wanted the money from the next client, which I agree with him. So I don't know. So law wasn't
a reflection of your nature early.
Obsessional.
Just to commit to something and go through with it.
Right. To try to get to the perfect
get it perfect. Yeah.
Right. I never felt it
beautiful.
Was. I think you never do feel it's perfect, but anyway, yeah. So I didn't really want to be a lawyer. It was that Jewish indoctrination thing. Be a doctor or a lawyer. The parents never said doctor, so I think they always said lawyer because I don't think they had the confidence in me with someone's life directly in my hands. But
my mum would always say to me that I have to marry a doctor.
I
think she knew I would never be one, but she's like,
"That's very
you marry one."
That's very funny. That's very funny.
But yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So I didn't really want to be a lawyer, so it wasn't hard for me to quit the law. And I knew I keep the license. I'm on the inactive list. I still pay dues, which means I could be a lawyer if I want to be. Just by repaying the dues, which is a frightening thought. So I haven't been a lawyer for years, and even when I was, I don't know how great I was. But although I did have not to brag, but I mean, I guess I'm picking stories that make me look good. But I only had like 2 trials, and one of the trials, it was a drunk driving case, and my client was completely guilty. He failed the blood alcohol test. It was there. So what I did was there was a book called Irwin on drunk driving. It's like gives you all the defenses against the drunk driving case. So there's like 8 different defenses you could argue. The machine's not working. It wasn't working. All these different things. I can't remember. And I gave such a long closing argument, all the possible reasons he could be innocent, even though it was clear he was guilty. And I kept the jury out for a day and a half. And the next day, the judge calls me in. He goes, "You lost the case, but this was a complete loser. I can't believe you kept him out a day and a half on this total loser case."
Wow.
Because I went through that book like a psycho.
Yeah.
Again, probably not a good business move, because I spent a lot of time looking at that book. I don't have limits, and I'm like that with cheesecake too,
So you've left law, you've jumped into stand-up now full time.
Right. It's been a while.
And where are you? Well, where were you when you would like? All right, so I'm quitting law. I'm going to stand-up. Were you in LA then?
Yeah, I was in LA, and I kind of the real reason I had to do it. I started getting road gigs because I was living. Actually, I wasn't living in LA at that point. Newport Beach, which is an hour south of LA. That's where I started because me and my friend Bob drove cross country. And we were thinking of living in LA, and then I was thinking maybe we don't want to be right in the center of LA. And I liked the idea of not being in LA because I knew I wanted to try comedy, but I was too scared to be right there with it, And so we drove an hour south to Newport Beach. So I started there, and luckily, and they had a comedy club called the Laugh Stop, which I knew about. That's why I wanted to go there. There was a comedy club there. It was open every day, and headliners would come in for the week. I got there in '81. But in like 76, Robin Williams would come down, and David Letterman would play the Laugh Stop. All these people would come down from LA to play for a week at the Laugh Stop. So luckily, I finally got on as an MC at the Laugh Stop. But to do that, I had to go. I remember I do these like horrible bar gigs, and one of them is kind of a funny story. Is a place called Bilbo Baggins. I'll never forget it. In Harbor. Harbor was just like 20 minutes outside of Newport Beach. And it was a place just for singers, like open mic singers singing their songs. I was the only guy trying comedy there. And I would totally bomb because I was horrible. I had a horrible act, I hadn't developed anything. But also the crowd was horrible. They just weren't listening to me because I was a comedian. They weren't used to listening to me and talk. They were just there for the music. But I didn't care because I knew I sucked. All I wanted to do was be in front of people with a microphone. I figured that was enough training just to be able to stand there and talk, One night, I'm talking. They're completely ignoring me. And by accident, I didn't realize. I was so nervous, I hit the mic switch. I turned it off by accident. So I'm up there, and I can't hear myself talking. I go, "What? The mic broke. The mic broke." And then the crowd stopped talking to each other because what's the word, the way I put it? They were distracted by my silence or something like that. The fact that I wasn't talking woke them up. Yeah, they couldn't hear me. So, they couldn't hear the person they were ignoring.
Wow.
Is the way I put it, So they couldn't hear the person, so they all stopped. And I go, the microphone's not working. And some guy comes on stage and he goes, "You turned it off," right? And a huge laugh from the crowd. Finally, a huge laugh. He goes back into the crowd. I go back to Mac. They go back to ignoring me. It was so funny. It's like, because they didn't want to hear me. But I thought it was just so funny. The one laugh I got was from making the stupid mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I went up there for like 15 weeks in a row at Bilbo Baggins.
Wow.
Once a week. I'd go up there. Thank God they let me go up there, and
but you're like, that's like walking into the death squad every freaking
That's
night.
what I mean. There's a part of me that likes pain. I've learned in therapy, I am a masochist.
Yeah.
I do like pain. I like rejection. I think because back then, my self-esteem's a lot higher than it used to be. I don't know how that happened actually, but it was low then. So there's a part of me, I think, that felt on an unconscious level, I deserve rejection. I deserve it. And I was also angry at him for rejecting me. So I also liked the fact that I was kind of annoying them.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Like your little bit of revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. That takes a lot of balls.
Yeah. I also had another thing. I remember you ever seen the movie Injustice for All with Al Pacino?
No.
It's a really good movie back in '79. I also had that spirit of taking things far back then when I look back on it, because there was a famous courtroom scene at the end of the movie. He plays a lawyer, and the judge is a horrible, corrupt judge, and the judge somehow got his client killed in jail because he wouldn't let Al try to get him out, and he was being abused by other criminals and then in the jail, and he committed suicide, and he blamed the judge. Mm-hmm. And he's telling the judge, "How you did this to my client? How could you do this to my client?" And the judge goes, "You're out of order," and Albert goes, "I'm not out of order. You're out of order. And he's out of order." He goes on and on about out of order. He just said it a few times. But somehow I tried to make a joke out of it. It would never really work. But I took the annoying part of it well. I just said, I was doing my laundry. First I talk about that movie, and I go, "I was doing my laundry." And the machine wasn't working. And on the machine, it says out of order. I'm like, out of order? This machine's not out of order. The whole laundromat's out of order. And I just kept going on and on about out of order. And I heard from my friend who helped me get on that show there, this no money kind of place. He said that sound guy is terrified you're going to be back next week because he can't stand the out of order thing. You drive him crazy. But I'd be getting no laughs and just kind of out of order. I just like hearing the sound of my voice doing Al Pacino.
Well, that is like a part of your act that is very unique. Just in the bits that I've noticed, you'll repeat things. Like you do the part with your name where you'll say your name over and over.
Right.
But it is so fucking funny. And I don't know what it is. It's a different type of comedy, isn't it? Because for the most part, we can see it coming. Because a lot of comedy is about the surprise, that shock that gets the laugh. But you'll do this thing where you'll repeat it and you'll repeat it, and we can see it coming, but it gets funnier and funnier as you do it. It's weird, the psychology of what the mind finds funny and how different it is. You've really pushed the stereotype, but then you do the surprise at the end, and then it fucking it's just this build up of tension. It's like tension release, tension release, and then pop. It's really cool.
Thank you. Well, it took me a long time to work out the order of those jokes and how I do them and the timing.
And the balls. Like just to go up there and do that in the first place, it must take a lot of balls.
It does, but I found, for good or bad, that I only like doing things that take balls. If it's too simple and easy, I don't like it. Like I could never be a comic that just telling a good, clever joke one right after the other. I'd get bored. I feel I have to test the audience. I like to test that patience. I think what I'm doing is reliving my relationship with my overbearing mother, who totally smothered me and spoiled me. I was always testing her, like to irritate her. I think I learned later in therapy to create a little distance from her because she was so smothering. I get a kick out of testing the audience how much they could take, but I want them to laugh. So I like the combination of testing you. You don't think it's going to be funny. You feel annoyed, but I still get you to laugh anyway, which is kind of what happened with my mother. I'd annoy her and test her, and then I'd make her laugh.
Wow. So tell me this. You were on the, I'm just looking at my notes here. You won Star Search in 1988.
88?
1980, 1988. I've
Yeah,
got it
right.
written
Oh,
down.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's, I thought you said 98. Sorry.
Okay. And that at the time must have been a huge competition. How early in your career, what point in your career were you then? Like how many years in, and how did that moment feel? Because that is massive. Like that.
Yeah, I was surprised. I certainly didn't expect to win the thing.
Well, the act was, I only saw the first, whatever you published on your documentary, it was like,
right, very,
the act,
right.
Straight away, it was fucking funny.
Oh, thank you very much.
So I'm not surprised. But yeah, tell me about that moment.
Yeah, well, I think I started in like the spring of 82. I would go to those open mics in San Diego. I would drive down with two friends, Steve Odekirk, Dan Schickler. We would drive down to these open mics in San Diego from Newport Beach. And so I do that maybe once every 3 weeks or something. So I was dabbling in stand-up in 82. Then I moved up to LA because I passed the audition at the Comedy Store. Mitzi Shore was the head of it.
Amazing.
Luckily, passed it. But she was only giving me, I remember when I got finished with my set, she goes, I guess I looked younger than I was then. I was 27, but when I walked over to a table, you're supposed to walk over to a table to see what you thought of the set. It was a pretty good set. Because they must love you in the fraternity. So she thought I was in college, right? But, okay, yeah, you're passed. Very good. But she only gave me spots in Westwood. Westwood was the other Comedy Store, not in Hollywood on Sunset, but it was a smaller one in Westwood, California, UCLA, where UCLA is, which is a good place. So I started doing stand-up there. So that would have been 83. Then ended up, somehow I lost my spots there. I'm trying to remember how I lost them. Oh, this is kind of a funny story. So I got hired. I don't remember how it happened, but I needed money. And I ended up answering the phones at the Comedy Store. You know, this Michael Berger was his name. He ran the office. Mm-hmm. And somehow I got hired answering the phones. And my job was to first answer the phone. And if it was something important or some Mitzi calling, to transfer it over to Michael, right? Mm-hmm. So I answer the phone, and as I said, I suffer from anxiety. So this is the first time Mitzi calls, and I get so nervous, I hit the wrong button when I transfer her over. I cancel, I hang up on her, right? Mm-hmm. He goes, what happened? You hung up on Mitzi? I go, yeah, sorry. When she calls back, you just send it over. She calls right back. I go, hi, Mitzi. Again, hit the wrong button. He was furious. You did it again. I got fired from the Comedy Store for that.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, lost my spots at Westwood, got fired, and
what, did she think you were fucking with her?
No, I don't know. I think she thought I was incompetent, I guess.
Yeah. Wow.
And it might have actually happened 3 times. It may have happened 3 in a row.
Maybe 7 times.
I think it was 3 actually.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and so I was devastated, and I remember I moved back to. I was living in Newport Beach, right, and I had no money, and I remember I got pink eye from my boss. Let me sleep on his floor in the office. So I was sleeping on the carpeting. I remember you ever hear of pink eye? It's an eye infection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so eventually I started doing a little more legal work for my boss. So that was 84. But I started emceeing again at the Laugh Stop, mm-hmm. right? And I started meeting the headliners in 84 at the Laugh Stop. They'd come in once a week. And some of them, I was doing well now as an MC. I developed my act a little at the Westwood Comedy Store. And so I was doing well. And they started telling me about clubs they headline. And I thought, well, I will try to be a middle act in these clubs. I contacted these clubs. And what I did is I ended up taking a bus. Or I took a flight out to San Antonio. That was like my first club. And I middled there for the week. And then I take buses to other clubs. A club in Amarillo, Texas. You ever hear of Sam Kinison?
No.
Oh, you got to look up Sam Kinison. He's a comic genius. Okay. He's probably my favorite comic. He screams his act a lot. You know, he'd scream, and he's really funny. Anyway, they told me a funny story at this club in Amarillo that they fired him because he would piss the audience, scare the audience, you know. Anyway, so I played Amarillo. And then I remember being in LA, and it was in LA. Oh, I guess this is the next trip. But all I know is that first year I spent 50 weeks out of 52 on the road.
Wow. Okay.
Taking bus to bus to bus. You know, club to club, from bus to bus. What a way to build
up your rigidity in comedy, though, just to get exposed to all these different places. I can't wait to get that moment.
Yeah, and plus to develop an hour of material. At that point, I only had 15 minutes. Suddenly I had an hour after a year.
Amazing.
And I remember then I went back on the road again, and I called up this comedy club on a fluke, because usually it was very hard to get the owner to answer the phone. You had to send videotape. Mm-hmm. They would never answer. They didn't want to be bothered by the deluge of comics. Am I pronouncing it? Deluge? Deluge. It's a word, Deluge. But I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Deluge.
I'm not the most linguistic.
Right. I'm not either. Yeah. But the only word I know is Lubel.
And Camber.
Right. And what?
My name, Camber.
Oh, right. Oh, you're not Lubel. Can I call you not Lubel?
I'm not Lubel.
Right.
Not yet.
Right. That's right.
Maybe another 30 minutes.
Right. No problem. But I'll have a hard time following you then. But my point is that, so I was home and I figured I'll just give this guy a shot. The Joker's Comedy Club in Oklahoma City, it was. The guy answers the phone. Unbelievable. They never answer the phone. I was shocked. And I said, yeah, I'm a comic out here in LA. And I didn't have to give him any credits or anything. I'm a comic. I was just wondering if I could middle for you sometime. I'm going to. He goes, well, I do have this week opening for Jerry Seinfeld. I go, oh, great. So he gives me a week. So that's how I got to know Jerry Seinfeld. I opened him we played racquetball every day, and I got to know him very well. And yeah, it was, so that's how that was 86, the summer of 85 in Oklahoma City with Seinfeld. And then, Star Search was the fall of 87. So I was still doing gigs in 86, different clubs. And I remember saw Richard Pryor's movie, JoJo Dancer, Your Life is Calling, out somewhere in Wisconsin. And that was 86. I was still working the road a lot in 86. And the fall of 87 is when I did Star Search. So I hadn't been a working comic. I had been a working comic for only 2 years, like working the road 2 years, and pretty much kind of dabbling in it, those others. So that's, how much I had been doing. Not that long,
Wow.
But you only had to do 2 minutes on Star Search. I think your limit was 2.5 for the set.
That's not long.
Not long. But I found when you're really rehearsing it and perfecting it, 2 minutes is long. Okay. Because every moment is thought through, try to tighten the joke as much as possible. It did seem a long, maybe now it wouldn't seem long since I have more material, but back then it seemed like a lot. And so it took I think I won 3 episodes. I wasn't favored. There weren't no odds on these things, but everyone thought the guy I was against, he already won 2 episodes. And he was a great prop comic, and props were way better for that simple kind of Star Search crowd.
Because a lot of it's basically televised, isn't it?
It's televised, and it's a big theater.
Yeah, so I can imagine props would be very interesting on television for people.
Yeah, not just for television, but for the audience too. Of course, yeah. Because you're only getting 2 minutes, and you don't have that long to get them on your side and hit them with funny props. So I didn't really expect to win, but for some reason I felt kind of confident. I don't know why, but I just felt confident in myself. I didn't know if I'd win. Somehow I won. And then I won the next one, and then I won the next one. And the fourth one I lost, but I didn't have to win that one in order to qualify for the semifinals. So I won 3, lost the fourth, and the fifth one I won the semifinals, and then somehow I won the finals.
Wow.
That's how it happened.
What a feeling. And then you're set. I mean, what did you think then? You were like, all right, well, I got a career in this. I've got cash. I can actually.
I didn't really think that. I was. I've never been that positive. I don't even like the word career. That feels too adult. I'm still identified as a child. I still feel I do. The word career still hurts. It hurts a little less now. I must admit, somehow, I guess I've grown a little against my will.
Yeah.
I remember, I never thought I'm set. I was very happy to win the money, but I do remember getting what they call depression after a big event. 2-3 days after I won the 100, I was lying in bed completely depressed. Mm-hmm. That's when I started seeing that shrink that told me 2 years later, press against the fear. Because even though I had the money and I thought I'm expected to be happy now, I wasn't, because actually I missed the contest. Because the contest gave me structure. Mm. And also I am competitive. I used to play basketball a lot. I'm very competitive. So I rise to the challenge in a competition. Mm. And so...
all of a sudden your purpose is kind of being stripped away.
Yeah, the purpose and also the structure, saying hi to the people. Hello, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And the purpose, true, and the structure. And the money, the money was great, but like, did I really know what I remember a friend of mine said to me before I won Star Search, or he said right after I won, that's great. Now you have the money, you could do what you want. And I thought, I don't know if I want anything. I didn't really know what I wanted. Like looking back on it now, I maybe taking saxophone lessons or something, but I was such a child. Like I didn't really think, I was just doing stand-up. I wanted to avoid adulthood, basically. I really liked stand-up. Because the one good thing I think about my childhood was there was some laughter. Other than that, there wasn't anything good, I think. So I was attracted to laughter. But other interests I didn't really have, so I felt pretty empty. So what was your question?
No, you just answered it. Okay. Thank you. So where did your career go next? So sorry about using that forbidden word. Right. Where did you? So you've got Star Search. You've won it. All right. You've gone through some dark times after. But where did you head then? When you did pick yourself up?
That reminds me. Yeah. So I was luckily also the year before I got approved at the Improv. I got kicked out of the Comedy Store.
That's in LA. Yeah.
In LA. I got kicked out of the Comedy Store in 83, 84. But in 87, I was living in Newport Beach and I didn't want to go back to LA. I was afraid of it. And so I had moved back to Newport, and so I didn't want to move back to LA. But a friend of mine kept convincing me, that I used to play basketball with, he said, just go down there and audition for the Improv. And I go, but what if they rejected me? He goes, just do it. And this is the most calm guy I used to play basketball with. I actually got him to snap. Just do it. Yeah. And it scared me. I only react to fear. He scared me. So wake up. Right. And so I did. I auditioned at the Improv for Mark Lanau. Bud Friedman and Mark Lanau were the owners. But I think Mark is still a part owner of it. But I auditioned. First, Mark Lanau, he approved me. He said, nice job. There's only 6 people in the crowd. He says, I'm going to have Bud see you, because Bud made the final decision. He was the bigger owner. Mm-hmm. And then I auditioned in front of Bud and said, yeah, we're approving you. He gave me all these dates in Vegas. He had a club at the Riviera in Vegas. Wow. He gave me like 6 dates, middling for $1,000 a week. Wow. They pay your travel. It was unbelievable. And he gave me spots at the club and the Improv itself. And so that was the beginning of 87. And so...
Geez, Vegas in those days must have been
Yeah,
fun.
that was really great.
Vegas is always fun, but that must have been...
Yeah, it
young
didn't
man you must have had a good time.
It was. Plus, there was none of this. I went back there like 15 years ago to do some benefit thing I was doing for someone. And they have all these... The road is not the same. They have all these there's like this highway overlooking the road. Mm-hmm. It's like just not the same at all. Mm-hmm. They had this incredible gym back when I played, but it was called, Industrial was the road that ran parallel to the Strip. Mm-hmm. And the Vegas Sports Club, and unbelievable full court gym. Unbelievable. A couple of funny stories. I'd be playing basketball there, and some of the guys used to be pro NBA players. They'd come down to the gym. I didn't realize it, but this guy, I found out later, he was a number 1 draft choice of the Celtics, but he blew out his knee, right? Anyway, he's in the game and I'm guarding him. And I was a pretty good player. I mean, not on anywhere semi-pro, but for a regular guy, I was pretty good. Anyway, I got cocky and I boxed him out on the phrase box him out on a rebound. That's where you put yourself between the person and the basket in order to get the rebound. I got cocky. This guy's so much huger than me. He's like 280. I weigh like 200 or whatever. I'm boxing him out. He actually grabs me by the waist, lifts me in the air, and puts me off to the side.
Wow.
I felt like a puppet.
Wow.
It was hysterical. But another funny story there. I'd be too self-involved as a player sometimes. I'd have my head down while I'm dribbling, and I wouldn't look to pass. I was a good passer when I wanted to.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I was known as a guy that didn't like to pass. But anyway, I was playing with a guy that was a first-round NBA draft choice, Lloyd Daniels, that had a drug problem, so he didn't last in the NBA. But I was on his team, and I'm looking down at the ball, and I got Lloyd Daniels, and he yelled at me, "Lift your head up!" So which he was right,
Yeah.
But it was an incredible gym floor too. Like you could jump so much higher on it. Whatever it was a super floor. So my point is, I loved Vegas back then, and it was fun me and my friend would go to. You ever hear of Caesar's Palace? Mm-hmm. It's a favorite. They had this incredible buffet for something like $15 for dinner, fish and steak and everything, all the cheesecakes. It was an unbelievable buffet.
Wow.
and me and Fred were going to write a movie. We wanted to write a movie together, and it was hysterical because it shows how lazy I could be. At night, I do the 3 shows a night, and at the end of the show, said, "Let's write." Okay, I go. Well, I just did 3 shows. I'm really, really tired. And so I wake up in the morning. He goes, "Let's write." Okay. Well, I want to go to the gym first. Can I just go to the gym? I go to the gym. He goes, "Okay, you ready to write?" I go, "Well, it's almost dinner. Can we go to dinner?" And so I avoided writing for a whole week. It came up. I always had an excuse, you know. But
did you ever consider getting into acting?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Did you do any acting?
A little. I was, ESPN, a sports network. Yeah, they hired me to play Bill Walton's best. Yeah, Bill Walton was a famous basketball player, and he was big on the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead. You've heard of the Grateful Dead? It was a band. So he was a deadhead. He'd show up at everything. So there was a series on ESPN called Bill Walton's. I forgot what it was called. There's a saying with the deadhead. I forgot what Bill Walton's long, lonely road trip or long trip, whatever, long trip or something. Because trip means like acid, kind of thing. Yeah. And so they realized after the first episode, it wasn't that funny. They wanted it to be funnier. So they had some auditions for people. And luckily, I was good at improv. And they wanted me to, they asked people, improv with each other on, to test us out. And luckily, I remember I used some of my health conscious worries. I talked about how inflammation, like I'm afraid of sugar because it causes inflammation, and all these diabetic terms I knew. I forget what they were. I'm not diabetic, but they got a kick out of it. Whatever, they hired me to be his friend. So I played, it was a structured storyline, but it was also, you could improv. You could improv within the storyline. So they really liked it. It shot 7 episodes. So that's kind of acting. But I would like to, I keep thinking, I'm thinking of maybe listing myself. Are you listed on IMDb Pro? Do you do acting? Or?
I'm listed on some of the job ads, but there's but nothing big. No.
Okay.
I can't do an American accent, so I don't know how I'll go in this country.
Well, I'm sure for the Australian ones, you'll get it.
Potentially.
You have a good shot.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But for now, comedy. Just stick to comedy. If something comes of it, of course, I would say yes to anything.
Hugh Jackman's son kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that could work.
Right. But what was I going to say about that? What was I talking about?
You were saying that you were on a series. You did.
Oh, right. But I would like to, because I was told, I remember that I took acting lessons with this guy like 20 years ago. And he said, "You really are a type. You really should be getting work." But I could never get an agent to do it. It's like catch-22.
I could see you as an actor, 100%.
Thank you.
Even after seeing your performance. Yeah.
Really, because it does take a bit of acting to pull that off.
Definitely.
Right, yeah.
I feel like when I've seen, I've go to the Comedy Cellar a bit, and just sometimes when I want to watch like really good comedy, and I've seen the same people over and over again, because there's always crossovers in lineups.
Yeah.
And their acts are identical a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
To every little movement is exactly the same. The way they point at the board, this is we're in a comedy, we're in a comedy club, And I figured that at that point, when you're doing that and it's just the same thing over and over and you're not changing your set at all, I mean, that kind of is just acting then, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. No, that's true.
But yeah, I think like with comedy, that from what I'm gathering about it is, it's very much intertwining with acting and telling jokes.
Oh, I think totally. Yeah, a lot of acting involved. But you want to come from, just like good actors, they come from a real place.
Yeah.
They're acting, but they're coming from inside.
Yeah.
They're not trying to sell like a salesman.
Gotcha.
They have to be real from within. And the same thing with stand-up. It's acting, but it's got to come organically real from within.
So tell me then, Al, where have you gotten your inspiration for your jokes? Like, where do you find your jokes from? And what I'm also interested in, and a lot of people interested in, is your like writing style and people's writing style. So
cursive.
Okay. So do you hand write everything?
Oh, right. Actually, I print with my hand, but I do. I can write on a computer. I prefer writing it. But before you asked me a question, I didn't want to forget the thing about how did you move on from Star Search to the next level?
Yeah.
But the thing with me was I made a mistake there. So I won the money. I wasn't cocky. I was never cocky from winning it because I felt it wasn't, to me, the big thing was Johnny Carson, getting on Carson, or this was syndicated television, Star Search. So it was better money than Carson, but, comedians can become super successful if they have a great set on Carson. Back in the day. I mean, by the year I did it, you ever hear of Arsenio Hall? He had a competing show, and Carson wasn't quite what it was towards the end. But anyway, I don't know if I definitely wasn't. I don't feel as good as I am now back then. But anyway, my point is, when I won Star Search, I didn't have a lot of confidence, but I was told now the improvs, when they were middling me all around the country, Dallas, different clubs, Chicago, and now they wanted to headline me because I won. And I made a mistake saying yes, because although I did have 45 minutes, fit to an hour, I didn't have the confidence, and the quality of the stuff wasn't as high. So I wasn't ready to headline. I started headlining and ended up losing. Actually, I was doing okay, but you know what I ended up doing? I got bored playing the same safe 45 minutes to headline. And I would try shit out in the middle, but I wasn't confident enough. If something didn't work, I'd get nervous it didn't work. And I kind of rush on the next thing, getting back. I didn't have that confidence to say, okay, it didn't work, or joke about the fact it didn't work, So, so I lost my headlining gigs with the Improv. And so winning Star Search might not have been a good thing, because I might have been actually able to gradually develop as a middle act more, have my confidence, and then naturally I ended up coming back.
So you were, I guess, in a way, forced to jump high. You were at this level, and you were at, say, a 5 or whatever, just an analogy, and then you're forced to jump to a 10 all of a sudden.
Yes.
Where instead it would have been a better progression to go to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 naturally.
Right.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Someone said that to me the other day. We were talking about, how a lot of comedians now are getting famous over YouTube and doing TikToks and these sorts of things. Yeah. And then, so they're funny on TikToks, they're getting 1 million followers or whatever, but then they're going to do comedy and then they can't hold their own on a stage.
I know.
And I guess that sort of is a similar sort of thing where they haven't built it up.
Right,
they haven't
it's true.
learned how to be a proper comedian.
Yeah, you have to have experience in front of a real audience that doesn't know you. They're not your fans. And you have to, it's a whole other world. And so it doesn't surprise me that happens.
Do you think it takes a lot of, they say it takes 10 years to build a persona. It takes 10 years to even sort of make it in the industry. Do you think that is a fair statement, to build, to figure out who you are and your personality and really show that?
I think there's some truth that when I started out, they said it was 7 years.
Okay.
Maybe it's grown to 10.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I heard that from a comic. It takes 7. And the thing, I think it might be true. I think I was always afraid to grow up as a kid. I didn't want to grow up. I identified as a child. I was terrified of anything adult. And so for me, I think I've continually evolved because I keep changing. I keep growing up a little more, just a little more and a little more. And I get a little higher self-esteem, which gives me a little better opportunity to take a little more chances because I have better self-esteem. So for me, I think, I might set the record. If I set the record for anything, it might be the slowest growth over the longest period. But so that's what was your question?
No, that was my question.
So these TikTok people are not, there's no way. They probably could, entertain their fans by doing question and answers with them. And I remember that video I did. Wasn't that funny? Now I got this idea for the new video, which is all fine. But you put them up in front of a real comedy club audience, forget it. You have to, I think 7 years is a good, because I remember, I started really doing it maybe in 84, 85, then suddenly in 91, I did the Tonight Show with Carson and did very well. But that was more me. I had jokes about being lazy, which was me. I had jokes of being afraid of going to hell, which was me. I had, fears of death, a heart attack. I had a bit about a silent heart attack. Seen that?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and so, I was definitely more me than in 91. But then I kept being more me constantly. And I also had setbacks, where I'd be worse. Maybe I tried to be too much me, and then I bombed a lot, and I got depressed and whatever. But it was a gradual thing, and I'd like to think
It feels like in your comedy and what you say, it's almost as much of a pursuit of finding yourself.
Yeah, it's a cathartic kind of thing. I'm kind of almost using the audience as a catharsis, to communicate with them. Yeah, but you still got to be funny.
Yeah,
but yeah, the more but I want to not just have to feel like I have to constantly be funny. I want to also be truthful. So it's the balance of really. But yeah, it is cathartic for me.
So yeah, let's go to your writing style. I'm really interested in that because we don't have. We honestly we need a lot more time. I need a lot more time with someone new. But let's do this again. But I want to know about your writing style and how you wrote. Like, did you at the start? Did you end up just writing on stage? Like, and when you would come up with an idea, would you sit down with a pen and paper? Do you stand there and talk it out? Like, how did you grow a bit?
Right. Yeah. When I started out, no, I always thought it before I went on stage. I was too scared to try to come up with stuff on stage. So, and occasionally when you really think things out beforehand, a line will hit you on stage suddenly that you didn't plan, which I would do. But I mean, yeah, I would just write I remember Steve Odekirk, who was a comedian, started before me, and he was really good. He had lists of his joke names on a card. He was very organized, and different joke names on the card. So I write, I just write out all my thoughts and then so that's how I really developed the act initially. And then I find now that I do like walking and talking, it out on the street. I'll just take a walk in a park or something, and I'll know the ideas I want to think about, and then I'll talk them out and see if I can make it funny while I'm walking and talking, and I'll put it in my tape recorder. I do that a lot.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And do you get your bits just from like observational stuff, or like is it where does the inspiration come from?
That's a good question. I know some of it's observational, like you're not allowed to. I remember I have a bit about. I wrote it a few months ago, but the idea is, dogs have more rights than I do. Why are they allowed to piss in the street?
That's
right?
true.
Yeah, so that's observation. I was really pissed off at this dog, angry at it. What the hell? Why can't I? So that's observational. But but a lot of it's just not observing my mind. A lot of it's observing my mind, because a lot of my stuff always comes back to the fear of death. I'm very afraid of death.
Still.
I thought you were doing a joke. You are, thank you. Yeah, but that's fine. Yeah, but I am, and so I have a lot of jokes on death. A lot. And I had a lot in the very beginning. Not the very beginning, but there's a period there where I'm pretty sure I had more jokes on death than any other comedian in the world. Because I had a lot. I was obsessed with it, and so I can't say for sure that I have more, but I was up there. But anyway, my point is that so a lot of it comes from just observing my mind, but it's very little of it. Oh, and so I used to do the thing where write for an hour every day kind of thing. And then again, when you just start writing anything, things hit your mind. And how do you know it? Who knows why they hit your mind, but they hit your mind. You say, oh, that's funny. Or you say, oh, that's not funny. So there's no one way to do it. I know Seinfeld says he does it every morning at 10 in the morning. I think he writes for an hour every day. He's always done it every day for an hour. I did that for a while, and sometimes I do that. But sometimes I like to walk and think instead of that way. Because walking, you can come up with better ideas. You get the blood flowing. I think
a lot of my jokes have come just from running. When I run. Oh, right, sure. Park. I don't know. There is something about being physical. And not trying to think. Right, exactly. And it kind of almost opens up a door a little bit. Yeah. That's interesting. I think, no one does anything the same. There's no like right or wrong.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, do you believe in God? Are you? I know you're Jewish, but
Right. No, I don't believe in that. The biblical God, I don't believe in that. But I believe in more. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning to this. I watch a lot of physics podcasts, cosmology. You ever hear of Sean Carroll? He's a physicist. I really like him. Very smart guy, and he has this Mindscape podcast. He interviews different people, and but he talks about what he believes in is that the universe. And Bertrand Russell also believes that. He's a British philosopher, and if you're a scientist, mathematician, they believe that the existence of the universe is just a brute fact. They call it a brute fact. It always has existed. And because the second you say there's a God that created the universe, well, who created the God? And then, of course, they'll say, well, God always existed. So when you say God always existed, aren't you saying the same thing as the universe always existed?
Mm.
You know, well, what? Oh, the only difference is, your God is like a nice universe who's looking out for you, but also punishes you sometimes. So that's the only difference between saying it's just the universe and it's God.
I hear you.
And believing in God is sort of like personifying what's out there. Oh, God, they created the initial God with the long white beard, you know, because the wise men had long white beards. So God must be wise, and he has the long white beard. I'm guessing that's the reasoning. You know, and then it became, he doesn't look like that, but he believes that God believes this and God knows that. Well, how the hell do you know? You're not God. How do you know what God knows? You're speaking for God, which is blasphemous right there, man. But so what about you?
Yeah, I do.
Sorry about that.
No, I don't believe it in like a that does not offensive because I don't believe in God in like a denominational sense. But I do believe we still exist in this consciousness, but in another form when we die. I feel like we have to because energy doesn't disappear. Energy just moves into something else.
I know.
So I think as soon as we die, my feeling would be that as soon as we die, we're just in a consciousness in another place.
See, I don't know.
And I do believe in reincarnation as well.
I kind
believe we come back again. I don't know when. It can be a while, but I believe we come back again in something else. Hopefully human.
I kind of believe that. I have a joke. I won't do the joke now on it, but the idea is, but what good is it to me if I come back as someone else? Because I'm not going to remember I was me. Yeah. So what good is it, right?
But there are some people that do. Like there was this kid.
They have those flashbacks, right?
There was this kid that was born. They did a little documentary of him, and he had till the age of like 9, he had a memory of being an airplane pilot in World War II. And he remembered who his co-pilot was, and they crashed into the Pacific. Mm-hmm. He remembered his name and everything. Then he ended up telling his mum this over and over. Mum, I'm this. And then she eventually did some research and found out that these two people existed.
Mm-hmm. Right. You know, I've heard those. There's a guy in Florida that wrote a book about these experiences. I can't remember his name, but I read the whole book. It was really interesting. Yeah, there's a big part of me that thinks it's probably true, because if the universe is infinite in time, there's a whole lot of time for all these things to happen over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there is a lot of truth to it.
Well, I feel like you've reflected deeply on that, because one of your bit in particular, which struck me, and maybe you didn't realize it or not, but you were like, you say something, I can't remember the exact words, but you were like, now. And now.
Oh, right, death. I could die now.
Yeah,
now,
that's it.
Now,
that's right. And now. But I feel like you've gone deep internally with your thoughts. Like I feel like all those sorts of thoughts are very deep. Almost like there's like maybe without even knowing it, there's a very deep spiritual side of you. The way that you're thinking about things psychologically is very, very profound.
Well, thanks. I remember like 10 years ago when I was living in LA, struggling to get work. I did have a spot somewhere in an outdoor show in someone's backyard or something. And I did pretty well, I guess. But some lady came up to me and goes, you really should keep focusing on what you're doing there with the existential stuff. You're like a philosopher. You're like
Right.
So she noticed that. So
I got that sense as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's like there was something in it, like you touching on that, the surface of that stuff, it's kind of freeing, because I'm not a linguistic, as I said. I probably struggle to express myself properly here, but it's almost like your fear of death and the way that you've made jokes about it makes other people not fear death as much.
No, that makes sense because it's bringing it. It's in people's subconscious fear is unconscious,
Right?
and so it's cathartic to them. I think
Right.
to hear about it. Yeah, thanks. I think so.
So I know maybe a part of your purpose has been in life has been to address these things. Maybe you have suffered in your life with having to live with these fears, but maybe your purpose was to live through that because you've then made it people less fearful of their own fears.
Are you trying
to say you've in a way given it's a kind of almost a curse for you, but it's a gift for other people. Does that make sense? That's a sense that I got from watching you.
I don't feel it's a curse for me because the thing is interesting. When I first started comedy, I remember being at the Laugh Stop in Newport Beach when I started. I remember thinking, what I want to do is like be the psychological comedian to try to like explain the inner thoughts. So I even kind of knew back then, that's kind of what I wanted to do. But I don't find it a curse. For me, it's cathartic to get it out.
I think it can come. It seems like it could be a curse because a lot of those, like fear, is a painful thing. Or fear can be a painful thing. So I maybe a curse isn't the right word, but yeah, for some people it would be.
Right.
If you've been able to express it, but imagine if you weren't able to express it. Imagine if you were just like, I don't know, stuck in a mundane 9 to 5 and constantly fearing death, but also not living the life that you felt that you were able to live. I mean, that would be tragic. Imagine if you're still a lawyer and you never got to do comedy. And
I know, but that's why I don't feel bad talking about it now because I'm getting it out. But you're saying you feel I could be feeling pain by talking about it?
No.
Oh.
I'm saying like your fears, because you've had like fears of death that you've spoken a lot about, like that for some people would be a painful thing, but for you it's not.
Well, it makes it less painful to joke about it.
Yeah.
I think joking about it is my therapeutic way of handling it.
Yeah.
Because I am still scared of it. But, if I went on stage and gave a lecture on death and I just spent an hour telling people how scared I was of it, I think that would be painful for me.
It'd be painful to people listening too, I think.
Yeah. But for me, like, you're making a joke out of my biggest fear is good to me. I mean, it's funny. It takes a little of the fear of it away.
I've got fears that I need to talk about on stage. I've got things that I've written that I'm so worried about the judgment of people, but I just know that there's some funny stuff in there.
Right.
Like there's, takes so much balls, eh?
Yeah, but if you're going up on open mics, you shouldn't worry about it because they're a tough crowd anyway, that the comedians watching, right?
I feel like they're the worst.
They're the worst. That's why those are the best people to tell your darkest, truest thoughts to because you have nothing to lose. They're probably going to ignore you anyway.
Yeah.
And the fact is they're less likely to ignore you if you come from a really truthful place. It'll wake them up.
It's funny. I get I think I'm averaging the last few months. I've sort of averaged around 25 shows a month, which is
that's great.
Which has been like good, and I love the shows and I'm really fucking enjoying them. But I never seem to worry about how I do in front of shows. I don't seem to get nervous now. Right. I get more nervous doing open mics in front of comics. I get more worried about the judgment of other comics. I get really, really nervous about it. I wonder why. Did you ever feel that?
That makes sense. I think I used to when I was younger about it, but the more confidence I get, the less judgmental because the more good I know I am, it doesn't hurt me to think that these comics don't think I'm good because they're probably not that good. They probably don't have the talent to realize I'm good. They don't have enough knowledge to know I'm good. So, and also luckily, comedians have always liked me more than many times audiences. Like I was known as I'm still kind of known as a comedian's comedian. Yeah. Because I think like you like me because you see the thought going into it. The average audience member probably doesn't even see the thought that had to go into it.
That to me is such a shame if they don't.
Yeah. Well, I think they do kind of in a way. Like there's they're all going, what is this? Maybe, but I don't know. I think comedians can appreciate it more.
Oh, totally. And I think if an audience doesn't know a lot about comedy and they're just used to the generic sort of joke writing, and then they come across you, it would be a shock for some people.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, it is. But I like shocking. You know, again, I like to do that. But yeah, no.
What's your advice? So we got 5 more minutes.
Okay.
We got to do this again. Please,
Okay,
Al.
sure.
I'd love
but
to.
not tomorrow.
No, a few more months.
Okay, good.
What's your advice to people that are getting into comedy, that are trying to work their way up, trying to find who they are in comedy? Like, what is a couple of words you would say to someone if you could pull them aside and say, "Hey, man, a couple of words of wisdom"?
Yeah, I'd say talk about stuff that you care about talking about, not stuff that you think is going to make you successful.
Okay.
You got to, the stuff that'll make you successful, the odds are huge that if you're doing something from the heart that you really mean, that's what will make you successful. Because it's going to be painful. If you're just trying to create this act that's going to kill, let's say it does, you get successful, it won't be the real you. You're going to hate it anyway, probably, because it's not the real you. You're going to feel fraudulent. So I think the best way, and I didn't come up with it myself, I've heard other people say it, is that, if you want to go on stage, talk about what you want to talk about. And if you feel it's too weird and too crazy right off the front, well, then do the second to the craziest or the third to craziest. Be gentle with yourself. You don't have to say the ultimate, most weirdest thing.
Yeah.
But like go to that direction, rather than creating stuff that you think people want to hear. It's the same thing with music. I mean, musicians that create these like crappy top 40 hits, but that's not from the heart. That music usually goes away. It doesn't last. It's the songwriters that really create something from the heart. That's the stuff that can last.
Mm.
Same thing with music. Same thing with comedy. Any art form, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know Josh Adam Myers?
Sounds familiar.
He gets around a lot. He does a lot of like musical comedy. I ran into him last week, and he said the exact same thing.
Oh, okay.
He said
he probably heard me somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. But he said, be yourself and don't worry about what other people find funny. Do what you find funny,
right? And
then everything will come. And he said, just most of all, just be yourself. Be yourself. Be yourself.
Right. Ellen DeGeneres, Ellen DeGeneres?
Yeah.
She said it the same kind of thing. She said, just keep saying what you think is funny. Not everything's going to get a laugh, but the stuff that sticks is the stuff that's going to be in your act.
Mm.
Right? Isn't that a good way of saying it? The stuff that sticks. Because a lot of the stuff I find funny, people just don't find funny. And I've tried it many different ways and it doesn't work. But some of the stuff does work. And so you just keep gradually whittle the stuff down get that stuff out that doesn't work and pick the stuff. And then you have an act that's all truly from the heart.
Beautiful. Well, Al, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's a pleasure to talk about myself.
I really enjoyed it. And I know everyone else will as well. And let's please do this again.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you in the next one, guys. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of Going After It with Cam Bird. Produced by Cam Bird, co-produced by Ryan Rizzuti and Jacqueline Laurie Edwards. Music by Brian Rigby. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and remember to hit that notification bell. And if you can, get after it.